critical. Right now, let's cross over to that particular pressure by Secretary of State.
Similarly situated, a special obligation to help other countries build resilience and adapt. President Biden this spring doubled the commitment that we're making to resilience and adaptation for countries that need assistance, and then he doubled that again at the UN General Assembly, and we're working with Congress to make sure that those funds are available. Coming out of COP26, we also helped lead the way to working to ensure that countries move even further when it comes to supporting adaptation and resilience for countries that need assistance, and we're going to be working on that. In the context of our own partnership, besides working together in these important international meetings and moments, we're also working directly together in ways that bring together different goals that we have because they're complementary. And so, for example, as we're working to build back better from COVID and advance inclusive growth that benefits our people, one way to do that is to invest in green technology and in sustainable infrastructure. And that also meets the needs that we have for advancing the fight against climate change. So, as the Cabinet Secretary said, we're very focused on initiatives between the United States and Kenya where we can engage in those kind of projects together, where we can make those kinds of investments. And that's something that we have a mandate now to look at very carefully. We have a number of different tools in the United States to help advance those kind of investments, including the Development Finance Corporation and others. We're trying to bring to bear all of these tools on working with partners, starting with close partners like Kenya, on making these kinds of investments going forward. They'll have economic benefits, good jobs, good wages, and they'll have clear climate benefits. And we'll continue together as we're working bilaterally to also coordinate our efforts when it comes to helping urging other countries to continue to raise their ambitions and to meet the goal that we share, which is making sure that temperatures don't rise more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. Because if we're not able to achieve that goal, then the world has a very, very big problem.
Final question will go to Michael Crowley, The New York Times.
Hello, thank you both. Secretary Blinken, in Sudan, despite the diplomacy you mentioned at the top of your remarks to reinstate Prime Minister Hamdok, the country's army chief last week appointed himself the head of a new ruling council. Does the U.S. accept the authority of that council? And if not, what is your next move for pressuring the military to back down or at least to stop shooting protesters? For both of you, a question on the bombings in Kampala yesterday. Cabinet Secretary, are you worried that Islamic extremist groups in the region may be growing stronger? And do you believe current U.S. counterterrorism efforts are adequate? And Secretary Blinken, could you update us on the status of the administration's Somalia policy review? Following President Trump's withdrawal of U.S. counterterrorism troops there, will U.S. troops be returning to the country? Thank you both.
Michael, thank you very much. On Sudan, the most important thing now is for the civilian-led transition to resume. And that means that this civilian-led transition, which was derailed by the military takeover a few weeks ago, needs to be put back on its tracks. And that, among other things, involves restoring Prime Minister Hamdok to his position as Prime Minister so that this transition, led by civilians in cooperation with the military, can continue and also can continue to receive the strong international support, including from the United States and international financial institutions. People of Sudan have repeatedly made clear their aspirations for democracy, their aspirations for this transition to continue. So this is what they want. This is what the international community supports. We're working with partners in the international community to urge the Sudanese military to release all of those who've been detained in recent weeks in connection with the takeover, and for the return of the civilian-led transitional government as stated in the Constitutional Declaration. We're also very much engaged with all the parties to try to put that train back on its tracks. Our Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Malifi, was just in Khartoum a couple of days ago. She met with Prime Minister Hamdok, among others. We'll continue to remain deeply engaged in support of the aspirations of the Sudanese people. And I'll say again about Prime Minister Hamdok, he is a source of legitimacy, and it's vital that the transition regain the legitimacy that it had before the civilian-led effort was derailed. But if the military puts this train back on its tracks and does what's necessary, I think the support that has been very strong from the international community can resume. That support has largely been suspended. And Sudan needs it. People of Sudan need it. Those responsible for Sudan need it. And so I think the international community not only has a strong voice, but significant leverage in, again, seeing a return to the civilian-led transition. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Would you remind me what it was?
What do you think the role of Kenya in this Ethiopia crisis? What is the U.S. view of Kenya's?
I see. I'm sorry. I apologize for missing that. I think Cabinet Secretary said it very, very well. I'll just add that we very much appreciate the efforts that President Kenyatta has made personally to engage and to support the efforts that are being led by the AU's mediator, former President Obasanjo. We very much applaud President Kenyatta's engagement on this. And I'm sorry, over to you.
Thank you. The question was about the bombings in Kampala. First, let me convey our deepest condolences to all those who perished in that attack, and wish quick recovery to those who were injured. But even as we condemn the attack in Kampala, we must remember that a few days before there was an attack in the United Kingdom of a similar kind. What it tells us is that terrorism is a problem for all of us, and the requirement is one of constant vigilance by all. It is necessary that we continue to collaborate and share intelligence, share best practices, so that as a world we are able to tackle this problem together. We must also strengthen our communities to be able to detect terrorists and to report them. We mustn't sit on our laurels, because if we do, then we give terrorists space to advance their evil agenda. What we must do is to work with partners, and I'm glad that we have been working with the United States and other partners on improving our counterterrorism structures, improving counterterrorism skills, improving our counter-violent extremism programs. That's what we must do, and we must look at this threat not only insofar as it affects African countries, but in the way in which it is networked and affects the entire globe. I thank you.
And Michael, with regard to the question of U.S. forces in Somalia, to your point, the Defense Department, in the first instance, the administration more broadly, are engaged in a global posture review. That's not yet complete, so I'm not going to get ahead of it, but that's in train. Thanks.
Well, I thank you all for your kind attention, and we now bring this press conference to an end. Thank you all very much, and thank you, my brother. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that is the latest between